Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to another episode of GWTF, Girl with the Faith. I'm your host, Cece, Lil Cece, Ciara, whatever you want to call me. We're back with another episode. Welcome to summer, you guys. It is hot. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. It's hot, dude. Like, I am in my setup, my studio, and I'm hot, especially with all these lights on me. No air conditioning and no fan because every fan is so loud, and I'm not good with editing to edit that out. So we are going to ignore that and move forward. How have you guys been? Thank you so much for watching this episode. I'm not gonna lie, the platforms have been doing really good recently, and the amount of people reaching out to me is really cool and really fun. I've been away for a little bit because I've been doing some stuff. I've been a little busy. Work is working. I've joined some small groups, and that's been going really good too. And then I did have an episode filmed, but I never uploaded it. So whatever, we're back. And today we're going to be talking about the intentionality of God, believing in God, but also believing in yourself. I feel this past 12 weeks, let's say 12 weeks, because that's the length of my small group, has been incredibly intentional, God-filled, and building and believing my future has been building this past 12 weeks, which is really cool. So a little backstory, we're going to get straight into it. Let me have a sip of coffee. Cheers if you guys have coffee, tea, water maybe. Maybe you're a water girl, or maybe you're a Celsius guy. Whatever it is, I'm both. I'm all of the above. So let's cheers and we'll get started. Oh yeah. Backstory. I was going through a moment where I felt distant from people. I guess we can say that. I felt that a lot of relationships that I had were very surface level, and I was really wanting to get deeper in knowing people. I want to know. I don't care what your favorite color is. I don't really care about the last boy you've talked to. What are your dreams and your desires? Let's go deep. So I was kind of in a moment where I feel like I was not finding those deep connections or conversations with anyone, right? I'm not in a relationship. I have a handful of friends, and it went through a period where I was just pretty distant from them and those conversations. But I had a deep conversation with a friend of mine, and we kind of talked about that, pouring into an empty cup and just wanting really deep friendships and not having surface level friendships where, someone reaches out to you and they ask you how you're doing and they mean it. And so I was going through a period of that, a really just solitude, alone time, but it was really eating away at me. I felt sad about it. I felt alone, and it was all at the same time where it's I am we're starting the podcast officially by myself, getting everything by myself, that I was I'm freaking alone as always. And I was thinking this today, I was wow, God is so good. Even when I was setting up to film, I was I'm really doing this. God really provided. I'm really out here doing what I want to do. Around that time, small groups were starting. My church does these small group programs, which is really cool. And you just sign up for something that you want to do and you get into that. So another thing I talked about, I think, during the start of this year, God told me, hey, you're not going to be a believer anymore. You're not going to be a dreamer. You're going to be a doer. You're going to do what you say you're going to do. You're going to set your mind to it, and you're going to do it. And so something that I've always loved, obviously, was travel. I've always loved kids, and I've always been so interested in missions work. And so in the start of my church journey, going through church, I found out that my church does mission groups. And I was this is really cool. Oh my gosh. And I would always pass by the pastor for it, and I'd be I'm going to do it sometime. And he's okay, here's the steps to start doing it. I never did it. And then I'd go home and I'd be I really want to do this, and then never do it. So God was you're going to be a doer this year. So I was going through this period of feeling alone, wanting to do more than what I've been doing, and just really finding God. And then someone that I knew, actually, I did Freedom with her. Shout out I don't want to say her name, but shout out her. She knows who she is. I found out through my mom, actually, that she started a small group with the missions pastor who, fun fact, baptized me and is the one who was like, here's how you do it. She started a small group and was like, it's a missions group, like preparing for mission work. This is not a missions podcast episode, by the way, because I do want to have a discussion about that when it comes time. But this is just how intentional God is, which is so cool. So I was not able to make it to like the introduction to missions first small group, but my mom was. And through there, they talked about the 3 missions that they have coming up this year. And they just discussed that. That's how my mom found out she was starting a small group. And my mom gave me the information. And I was like, wait, oh my gosh, I'm going to sign up for it. I signed up for the small group. And that is what I've been doing the past 12 weeks, every Tuesday. But you guys, it starts the time my shift ends, and it's 30 minutes away. So I had a little bit of blockage, like 30 minutes away plus tolls every week, every Tuesday. I was 30 minutes late every day. And I think it's just so funny and so cool because when I would walk in, I think the first 2 weeks, the only person I talked to was the girl I did Freedom with, the leader of the group. And then slowly, as time went on, I made friends with people. And these people are seriously my friends. Like, we're all going on missions this year. Wait! No, I can't say that. These people have seriously like become my friends, which I think is really cool. I generally just enjoy each of their companies. We like stay super late even after small group ends, and we play Mario Bros, and we talk, and we eat the charcuterie board, and we just have a blast, and we really just enjoy each other's company. I now have deep friendships and connections with people. And then we had prayer in the morning. I went to prayer in the morning, and it was around this time where I was really deciding on if I actually wanted to go on a missions trip. Like, is this something I want to do? Anyway, we'll get into that in a different episode, I feel like. Stay tuned for that. It's such a good story, but it just all plays into the intentionality of God. And so our last small group meeting, they asked basically making up a rose, a flower. You have the thorns, the bud, and then like the actual bloom. And so I think the thorns, like what's the hard thing I had to go through was, and I want you guys to think of this as well, the thorns, the hard thing was definitely the solitude period, I think, for me. And I get really confused with like solitude by God and then solitude by the enemy. Like, am I meant to be in a solitude place right now because I need to learn something, or I need to grow from something, or I need to distance myself from something? Or is it the enemy like forcing me into a trap door, like into an enclosed space to make me feel like I'm alone? I still, to this day, I don't really know what it was during that period, but I just know that I'm out of it by the glory of God. Amen. And I've met such incredible people. So that was my thorn. And then I think the bud was definitely joining this mission group and meeting these people who we're all pretty close in age, but also like it's different. Like, we have a mom, we have like older people, and we're all in these different stages of life, but yet we have something so in common, and it's God and wanting to be a disciple of God and wanting to impact other people and just bless them the way God's blessed us. So that's definitely been the bud of it. And I think that's also my bloom as well, because I know that I'm going to be friends with these people forever, and for what's to come, and I'm not going to say it yet, but for what's to come, I think it's a great setup and segue for me entering this new chapter of life of being a doer like God said to be, and not a believer. So that's my little story about why I want to talk about the intentionality of God and believing in Him, but also believing in ourselves. And I want you guys to think about that as well. Like, has God been intentional in your life this past week, month, or couple months throughout the year? In what ways has He been? And then think about that, like that rose analogy, the thorn, the bud, and the blossom. Like, write it down. What has been the thorn, the hard thing to get through, to getting to like this really perfect place where everything, not perfect, but it's in between place of getting past it, but also looking forward to something. And then what's been the blossom? So that's my story. Please think about that, you guys. So something I've realized, right? And I think this has to do with believing in me. I may just have commitment issues. Like, I don't take the next step. And it's with a lot of things. I'm very hit or miss. I'm not like in between. It's either I full send 110%. Now this could be with anything. Like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right now. Or I'm like, I should do this, but should I? And then I just never do it. So it's either like 110% or 0% in. There's no in between. There's no 50-50. There's no thinking about it, or there's thinking about it too much. I don't know. If anyone is like the same way with that, please tell me, because I realized that may be a little bit of commitment issues for me. I take a while to commit to something, or thinking about the commitment of it scares me. I've always just been like, God will provide, and this is not a bad thing. God will provide, God will do it, and God will take me there. Yes, but also there's steps to it. You have to put in effort. God's not just going to give you everything because you say he's going to, right? Like, you have to take the steps to do it. I realized I have this problem, and because of this problem, it prevents me from doing things I really want to do. Number one, I realized hobbies. I don't have a lot of hobbies. Like, this is a hobby, right? It's a hobby for now, I think. Hopefully, it'll become a job. But this is a hobby. Like, I was also talking about my best friend with this. We went to dinner. I'm like, I don't really like talk to anyone. I don't really like, She goes, well, you need to go places. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, the only places I go, or the only places I remember going to meet new people, was like out, right? And then it's like, now I'm work, church, home. Work, church, home. Small group on Tuesdays. Like, that's been my life. And she's like, you need to do something. And I'm like, I suppose you are right about that. So hobbies, I've talked about it, and I'm like, I have no hobbies. I have nothing separate from what I do on the daily that is going to get me out of like this comfort zone. I signed up for a couple stuff to like, be in there and like meet new people, which is really cool. So I'll let you know how they go. I think hobbies are a really cool thing for people to have, like sports, working out with like your gym friends. I'm like, where are my hobbies? I don't have any. And so I'm like, okay, let me be grateful for where I'm at. Let me give myself a pat on the back for what I do, right? Because I mean, you have to acknowledge that at some point, like, you're going to work, you're going to the gym, you're going to church, and you're doing these things, and great job. But something my pastor said today was, make sure it doesn't become routine. And I've just been in a routine, which is great. And now I feel God taking me out of that routine, but it's because I am believing myself to do the next step. Like, I think where I am was where God had me be a year ago, and that was his intentionality for it, to lead me to where I'm going now. But if we get too comfortable and we don't take the next steps, we'll be stuck, or we will be saying one day, every day, and we won't take that next step. Procrastination is a sin, actually. And let me look this up, because I heard this recently, and it's that the enemy will keep you in a place of contentment, in a place of like staying somewhere and saying you're going to do it and then never actually doing it. So I feel really blessed that God called me out on it, one, where he was like, Ciara, what, like, how many times are you going to say you're going to do it and you just like don't do it? And I'm giving you the steps to do it. So you just do it. I'm like, okay, God, period. Ooh, okay, here it is. To waste it, to squander it through sloth, laziness, procrastination, task avoidance, immotivation, desultory or dilatory behavior is a sin against life itself. And then I see Proverbs 20, verse 4, the sluggard and the harvest. Sluggards do not plow in season, so at harvest time they look but find nothing. Ooh. This proverb teaches us about the importance of working at the right time. If we procrastinate, we might miss out on important opportunities, just like a farmer missing the season for planting. Now, this isn't to say you're being lazy. This isn't to say that you waiting for your time is a bad thing, right? Because when it's not our time, we will know. And here is how I kind of differentiate when it's my time and when it's not my time, right? Because when it's not my time, I pray and I say, Lord, please be with me in this time, like use me as a vessel where I am, and he will. And there will be, and I notice this, opportunities within where I'm at, like opportunities that come about from work, opportunities that come about from being in the gym, opportunities from come about at church, right? And that's where God is meeting me where I'm at, because I'm meant to be here at this time. And now there's a prayer where it's like, that I pray, where it's like, Lord, like, be with me in my future. I give it all to you. Guide me to where I'm supposed to be, where you have for me to be, and where you plan for me to go. Did that make sense? I don't know. Sometimes I speak and it doesn't make any sense, but like I'll pray that. And I notice opportunities come about that are the next step. That is a bigger picture. And it's a bigger picture in a way where I can do it. The resources are there. Am I gonna take the step to do that? Do you know what I mean? Can you picture the difference? Here's an example that I will use for this. At work, let's say, I always look for opportunities to be positive, right? Because no one wants to be at work. Let's be so legitimately honest right now. Who wants to work 9 to 5 every day? Not I. Baby, I want to be in a pool. I want to be cuddling with my dog Gizmo. I don't want to be at work every day. But I pray for patience and guidance. And, I'm here for a reason. Lord, like, meet me halfway. And God will place, I'm in the medical field, so God will place a patient or even one of my agents there to where there is guidance that needs to be had, or there's a topic of discussion that needs to be had when it comes to God, when it comes to health and abundance, and whatever you can think of someone needs to hear, God will send that my way where I'm at. Now, for example, with the missions group, I prayed like, Lord, is missions something I'm supposed to be in on, or is this just me wasting my time? I prayed this in morning prayer. Sometimes my church does morning prayer, 6:30 a.m. I go, morning prayer comes, and we are worshiping. Like I am in deep worship, and I'm praying like, Lord, is missions for me? Is missions for me? Is missions for me? What's for me, Lord, right? Because is this for me? I want to do it. I don't know if I should do it. Is it for me? The pastor stops worship. We have like 10 minutes left, and he goes, the Holy Spirit is placing on me that we need to pray for each other. I'm not going to pray for you, but I want you to partner up with someone and pray for them. Oh, I'm getting chills. I'm getting excited to tell this. We stop, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, okay, everyone is partnered up. Who am I going to pray with? And there's a girl in front of me around the same age, and she looks behind, and I'm like, in the little communication of you and I, it felt like high school. Like, do you want to be my science partner? And so she comes over and she sits down, and we just kind of share what we are praying for or looking for. Like, I'm just praying for the next step from God. Like, God, just like, give me the next step. And she goes, okay. And she is where I was last year. Okay, she is where I was last year. So last year I was going through freedom. I was struggling with like being freed from sin, anger, hurt with my dad, as I've talked about, anything like that. And that's like my testimony. So she is where I was last year. She's going through freedom now. And she's like, I don't know. Like, I am lost. I don't know what's meant for me. I don't know how to forgive people and everything like that. And so we bowed our heads to pray separately for each other. Like, I pray for her, she prays for me. But I was like, can I pray for you? And she said yes. So I put my hand over her and I'm just praying. I'm praying a prayer that is like my testimony, and praying that God like gets her to where she is and like places peace on her heart, because I know that feeling of just overwhelmed. Like, it's just a feeling of overwhelming when you're going through freedom, because weekly it's a distraught feeling, especially when you have so much to get freed from. And so I'm just praying for her. And at the end, we just hug and we're crying. And it was just a moment of understanding. And like, she needed that. And I was there for her. And so I knew that, okay, missions is for me. Like that was just the intentionality of God, you know, him placing this thought on a pastor, this feeling, the pastor saying it and we need to do it, and her and I just finding each other and me praying for her. So I knew right then and there, like, okay, I need to take this next step, sign up for this class and do the rest. So I am now able to differentiate that, you guys. And I think you need to think about this too. Like, when I pray for God to place me somewhere, when I pray for the future, because God is intentional and God will answer, but we just need to know what he's saying. Like, how does God answer me? How does God respond or give me the answers I'm seeking? Is it through where I'm at, or is it through the next step? And I think he's so intentional that when we get the answer, we will just know. So now that I'm able to spot the difference, I pray for bravery to execute them. Like, God, it's your will, and I know it will be done, but give me the strength. Like, let me believe in myself, because believing in ourselves is the most important thing. We need to have a strength within us, and that strength comes when we like fully submit to the Lord, by the way. So it's not going to come until you fully submit to God, but it's also knowing like, I can do this. I can do all things through he who gives me strength. I prayed this and now I'm in the walk of it, and it's like, looking back at it, it's like, oh my gosh, how could I have ever thought that this wasn't going to be the case? How could I have ever thought that I was less than, that I am stuck, you know? And we're not stuck. And God is just so intentional with everyone, with every thought, every prayer, every person he places on your life. Like, he's intentional with it. Finding hobbies. And like, I'm literally, I signed up for figure skating. Here's the thing, you guys, I've always wanted to do figure skating, right? And it's like, okay, you're doing figure skating. Like, what's that have to do with like missions work and everything? It doesn't really, but it has to do with me doing something I've always wanted to do. And I've always wanted to be like, just not amazing on ice, because let's calm down. Like, this isn't Ice Princess 2006, you know, like, this is just me wanting to do something I've always wanted to do and have fun with it. So, so I signed up for ice skating this summer. Listen, y'all, by the winter, I'm going to be a pro. I'm going to be like Ice Princess, literally Ice Queen. So doing that, signing up for that. And it's the little things. You guys, find something that you want to sign up in. Even if it's like being a greeter, like, or doing something with your church, doing something at like, I don't know, the school closest to you, volunteer work, do anything, picking up garbage. Like, the smallest hobby can get you out of your comfort zone to be ready for bigger things that you want to do. And something, I was talking to someone and she was like, I created, like, I'm 35 years old. I created a bucket list, 35 things that I've always wanted to do that I've never done, 35 for 35 years. And I'm like, period. I'm going to do that. So I'm doing it. Figure skating is one of them. Listen, follow me on the socials so you can see my journey through that, because it's going to be quite good, quite good. Now, I think talking about believing yourself and talking about believing in God and, you know, taking the next step, this is within our means, right? Like, let's not watch Fast and the Furious and feel like I can be a drag racer and then go drag racing for the first time. I mean, maybe, I don't know. If you want to. I don't want to say don't do it, but like, let's be smart about it. You know what I mean? Like, let's be intentional with what we're wanting to do, what we're looking for. Now, hobbies are hobbies, like my ice skating. And then there's more intentional work to be done, like signing up for a 12-week small group class, finding time, driving out there 30 minutes and $15 every week to go. You know what I mean? Like, we have to be intentional with it, but also have fun. God does not say, hey, you can't have fun. So I think even this episode is going to be super intentional for those who need it, because it's super intentional for me to constantly just remind myself about the intentionality of God, about pushing myself and believing myself, right? Because we need to do it. We need to believe in God, and we need to believe that He will give us the strength to take the next step. So couple things to think about. I hope this episode, reached you in the way that you needed to be reached, or in the ways that you needed to hear something. Think about the rose. What is your thorn, your bud, and your blossom? And then think about the intentional prayer that you're praying and the intentional answer that God's going to give you, right? Like, is it when you pray, is He putting places in your path right now, or is He setting you up for the future? And trust me, you will know the difference, because now I can look at it and say, here's the difference of God being intentional with like where I'm at in my day-to-day, and where God's being intentional with where I can be for my future. We don't need to stay stagnant. Be careful on staying stagnant. Be careful on confusing God's words and the enemy's words. Like I said earlier, like, am I in a season of solitude because God is placing me here, or is the enemy placing me here to feel so incredibly alone that I can't take the next step, right? At the end of the day, God's will always prospers. And I think that's another thing that's showcased in these past 12 weeks for me, is like, God is always going to win. And when you open your heart and literally surrender to God, His will be done in your life. And there is no one or nobody or anything that can stop that. Because when God says yes, nobody can say no. Can I get an amen? Quick little episode today, you guys. I hope you heard it and you loved it. I'm happy that I did it. It's a good episode. And I love just kind of sharing. Here's the thing, right? Because here's another way, like, God is so intentional. Oh my gosh. When I was starting this podcast, I was like, I want it to be real life experience with a God passage and a godly outcome, right? And I want it to not only be a lesson for me, but a lesson for someone else. When I started the podcast, I feel like when it was Find Your Mind, if you were here for that. If not, it was called Find Your Mind before. It almost felt as though I was like a motivational speaker, and it almost felt as though like I had it all figured out, which I don't. I think that's the really cool thing as well. And like God being intentional with the name change, and with really having me realize what this podcast is for, who it's meant to reach. It's because we're humans. We take the day to day. I'm 24 years old. I'm going through the same thing you guys are going through, but how can we find God in that? And how can we put it into a life lesson and into our testimony? So God's been really intentional as well with the episodes I'm putting out and the things I'm learning and going through. So that way I can put it to an episode and, lead you guys in that. So thank you guys so much for watching this episode. Please follow the social medias. You can watch the podcast only on YouTube and listen on Spotify and YouTube. We also have TikTok and Instagram. They're all under GirlWithTheFaith. Give us a follow. Give us a like and a share. Or you can follow me on my own personal Instagram and TikTok and YouTube channel, Ciara Roblesss, 3 S's at the end. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next episode. Stay blessed, y'all. Bye.